Thank you very much, our dear viewers, and welcome back to yet another episode of the Citizens Chat Show. Today, of course, we are discussing the pertinent issues we have all followed in the last 1 week. A little bit of heat in Parliament regarding rationalization, which is basically, as the President stated, trying to save 1 trillion shillings in terms of government expenditure. We'll be discussing whether it was a rational decision or not. I'd like to hear from the dear panelists along that line. But also, you've probably been seeing the chaos in town regarding one word, EFRIS, that, of course, has caused a lot of questions, a lot of confusion, and people are trying to identify what kind of interests to lie behind in this whole regard. Of course, we saw the President hosting traders at State House, and the President himself releasing a very interesting response today. That shall be in discussion today as well. But before we delve into the topics, I would like to start by introducing my dear guests. Starting from the far right, we have Major Awich Pollar. You're most welcome. Awich Pollar, of course, is the Director, External Affairs at the National Resistance Movement. You're most welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, viewers.
Yes. And next to him, we have the Congressman, Mr. Ochieno Joseph, who is a media personality, but also a UPC ideologue. You're most welcome.
It's a pleasure, and just a matter of clarity, I will be on the left, not far right, because far right.
Yeah. But they say UPC left the right, but it did not move left.
We've never been anywhere else but left, just progress left.
You just left the right. Okay. We'll get into that
yes.
further. But of course, we have Dr. Bireete, who is the Executive Director, Center for Constitutional Governance. You're most welcome.
Thank you, and glad to be back. Good afternoon, viewers.
Yes. Of course, we have Dr. Dr.Robert from Kyambogo University, where he heads the Department of History. You're most welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Yes, starting from the key topic, one of the core areas was we saw the President responding, to the plights of the traders. Many of them submitting very articulately the issues around EFRIS, to which the President, suspended a few items, especially penalties, and asked the traders to give him some time to look into the matter, which he finally dispensed what he regards his thinking on it yesterday on social media. And it was really interesting because, and this leads to a question to you, Major Pollar. Again, the President withdrawing from what people were quarreling about, tax and all this, and taking us to a strategic level, saying, we should not continue producing what we don't consume and consuming what we don't produce. And this tax, these systems that are being introduced by government are actually to create a situation where, we use more of our natural resources, import substitution, and the strategic goals of NRM as a government. What do you make of the President's reply? Of course, he also commented on revenue collection, but he said that is secondary.
Well, I will take the debate somehow. I have not been around since Monday, yes. And today is that's the other Monday. No, it was the Friday?
No, today is Friday.
Today is Friday, but it was the other Monday. So I've been away for a while, and part of my being away included traveling a lot. I was from here to Europe to South America, Venezuela. So I'm not in the heat and feel of current affairs. But I just wanted to say that I would do. I have seen the response, but I would wish to suggest that I give my response after hearing from my colleagues who have been in the theater, who have been in the heat and feel of it. Then I would join in. because I may have missed a few things in my course of traveling, because Venezuela, Turkey alone is 13 hours back, that is 26 hours in the air, 26 hours. So I could have missed a few things. So to make my able contribution would mean end up giving first chance to my colleagues. But then now let me take this opportunity to share with the viewers that the same global dynamics affects the world. I have been in Venezuela. Venezuela is suffering because of the capitalist tendency, the Americans. For example, in one financial year, their income, they're a oil producing country, they had $50 billion in annual revenue.
From oil?
Yes, 50 billion. But when the Americans interfered with them, in the next year, they got $700 million, less than $1 billion, meaning they lost 49 billion, 300 million.
But they got freedom.
So the economic situation is there. They are struggling, but the people have a resolve, the kind of resolve in Cuba. But at United Nations level, in General Assembly in New York, all the countries by resolution say, no, you are really touching Venezuela for nothing. And of course, in such a kind of a resolution, you find America remaining alone with Israel. But even their strong allies like France, England, what they say, leave Venezuela. So it's a struggle there, and our prayers with them. So, back to the topic is that normally for a president is at a strategic level. The operational level is handled by the URA and the ministry at best. But let me not preempt my comment. So I want to resolve by saying, can I have a chance to hear from my friends who have been in the field?
Yes. Thank you very much. And I would like to bring past that baton to Mr. Ochieno. The president, stated that, not everything is taxed. As a matter of at a strategic level, this government doesn't tax items that promote, import substitution, but also value addition to our raw materials. However, the tax is normally being imposed on, items that, consumer items that are imported, and create a situation where the local industry cannot thrive. Would a UPC government make the same analysis at a strategic level?
Absolutely not. There is no way in which UPC would be associated with the kind of shambles we've got. And in any case, UPC is a progressive leftist political party, and that in government, we practiced what shook America. We practiced what shook global imperialism. And for that, we were not necessarily particularly their good friends. And it's interesting hearing from Comrade Awich, who sits at a secretariat, who, as a matter of policy, basically sympathizers and backers of the forces that have broken the back of Venezuela, broken the back of Cuba, sought to break the back of Uganda with our progressive policies of the 60s by giving us Idi Amin, broke the back of Uganda by backing Mr. Museveni in the bushes because they were threatened that UPC was going to, and was already acting to reclaim the Republic of Uganda and to push the people of Uganda in a direction akin to the middle Venezuela, mid-Cuba, but particularly nearer to the progressive leftist countries and economies like Norway, Sweden, Scandinavian, progressive social democratic economies where government takes center stage, provides for the majority of the people, cushions the populations, meaning therefore people in Chikubu would be the most vulnerable part of people to touch. And so in other words, you really don't touch Chikubu, but you actually touch Bireete, you touch whatever is happening in Luboa, you touch corruption, and you touch cattle herders who have cattle in their thousands and they're not taxed. That is what UPC would do, so therefore it would not necessarily be this. Number two, it's interesting, Comrade Awich, I'm delighted he's come from Venezuela and seen what progressive leftist governments would do. It's interesting what a contradiction, because a NRA for the last 38 years, really possibly 36 from about 1987, cannot show evidence that they have been deliberate to focus policies and programs that cushion the majority of Uganda as an interest, that cushions the most vulnerable, that creates enabling environment for industry, domestic and local industries to grow. To the extent that's an official policy for this NRA regime to give tax waiver and tax havenship for so-called foreign investors, some of whom we know they are really not foreign investors, they come with nothing, to give them land, in many cases sometimes to give them relief, including the likes of the Atiak sugar factories. I don't know, Comrade Olaa, on your way between Gulu and Kampala. I don't know which indigenous Ugandan struggling business was the same, arguably 10 million Uganda shillings, or possibly even 100 million Uganda shillings on average, that would be on the lower end, has been cushioned and or rescued. I don't know. So, no, we wouldn't do that. And in any case, anyway, this debate is diversionary. This debate comes on the top of the excesses of a very irresponsible spending regime, a very big government, a very big parliament, a very big presidency, people who use money in the hundreds of billions to give to individuals, versus literally nearly nothing to ordinary Ugandan citizens on the lower end. The debate around Amongi and in Parliament, and Among and her team in Parliament, the debate amongst the missing trillions, the debates about Lubom, and the debates about the corruptions that Bireete was silenced on, is the debate we should be having. Now you bring in these tax things. I have argued, and I don't know whether this program had this conversation, that in a normal democracy anyway, Comrade Awich, by the time you were leaving for Venezuela, clearly the issue of whether or not there is going to be a review of tax regime would have been a matter of manifesto that would have been committed by your organization at Chadon. Meaning tax reforms, just like government size reform, part of the conversation they talk about. These are manifesto commitments. You say during the campaigns, Mr. Museveni says that I am very sorry that I caused the poverty in the last 36 years. Now for the remaining 2 years, I'm going to turn around and begin to give tax relief and then review tax thresholds, and we will do so by making sure that we save 1 trillion shillings, and after 1 trillion shillings, $500 billion shillings will be going to cushioning the lowest of the low. Yep. And then other political parties have this debate. So I'm saying these are matters of policy debate.
The president says, and most of the population is not taxed. Most of the petty business that people do, the poor Ugandans do, is not
That is
taxed.
how bad this performed.
But the key issue is, to create a situation where the persons who mostly import, that is creating this cycle of business that doesn't create jobs, that doesn't add value to raw materials. That is what they are timing. It's not that most people pay tax or don't pay tax.
My colleagues, I'm sure will say I'm not sure that's the point. That is absolutely not the point.
Yeah, but because if I may come in,
Yeah.
if imports were not creating jobs, Chikubo would be empty. Why is Chikubo full of people? Trading is an employment. Being a business person is an employment. Yeah. So it's not that importations don't create jobs. That's false.
And not necessarily is it the case that people are talking opposition to taxation. As I said, as you see, we believe in tax. We're a party that believes in taxing. But we believe in progressive tax. And I think I've told this program in a different context that, look, a future UPC government would possibly be looking at a minimum minimum tax threshold, say 500,000 Uganda shillings on employment issues, that anything below that would be tax-free. And that will be targeting the upper echelon of the tax threshold. But while doing that, you invest, as Sarah says, you invest in an enabling environment in which you create more jobs and enable more people to go up the tax bracket so that they're able to not only earn well and live well, but also pay more taxes. Do you know one of the reasons why some people, of course, there are many issues, and of course an introductory part of the conversation. Some of the other issues at stake is this thing about tax avoidance. Some of the other issue is the unpopularity of tax. Some of the people, including the poor, ordinary people, being whipped in Chikubu. Part of their problem is that they actually pay these rather exorbitant taxes, including this morning me paying 20,000 Uganda shillings for a breakfast with a friend, equivalent of those 18% taxes thing. And I ask myself, where does this money go? It is really simply, that is really the case that Mr. Museveni can not show a proof of where our tax dollars have gone in the last 38 years. It is really that Mr. Museveni knows that however much he beats up the people in Chikubu, after one of them have got a broken leg, there is no guarantee that they will go to Machinde, to go to a local health center and get free medical treatment. And there is no guarantee that actually many of those women, most of whom are actually single mothers, most of whom are single mothers and some of them single grandmothers, being beaten up in Chikubu, who are looking after average children in primary and lower secondary school. Those children cannot go to the schools that I went to and get education, the manner in which Museveni got a free education thanks to a UPC administration. Those are the issues. Education has been massively privatized. Health has been massively privatized. Everything in Uganda has been so massively privatized that now that we're talking about tax collection, it may be the case that actually our conversation here is about to begin tax.
So you think that it's getting more revenue to cover up government excesses, as you claim, is the primary reason and not secondary, as you stated?
It is one of them. One of them is a diversion trend, but two is partly that. But I think it's interesting you raise it from that perspective.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why we're in this is because of NRA's mess. They came in with this anti-homosexual legislation on top of everything else about the massive human rights abuse, including the beating up of our young people in the streets of Kampala, and they're paying for it. And once their traditional Western allies, for whom they did the beating of Ugandans on behalf of London and Washington, and while London and Washington said, oh, we shall withdraw our funds, you remember just as recent as last year how Museveni boasted how they can afford to pay for their services, forgetting that they can afford means basically our tax burdens. And for him, with this cattle in Rachitura, it doesn't pay a penny. And by the way, I hope the cattle in Rachitura can be properly audited and make sure that, well, no vet or no medicine from those ones comes from Uganda's national stocks.
Interesting. Interesting take there from you regarding this EFRIS. Dr. Bireete, your comments?
Well, I want to start with the Museveni's pet debate, but which I like so much, the debate on coffee. He usually tells citizens in every State of Nation address on how we donate so many jobs to Europe through importing coffee where we don't add value. Yeah, export, sorry, coffee. So I quickly checked the data on coffee and how much money or jobs do we indeed donate. I love that debate so much, and I wish he would concentrate on it. But time is up. 40 years, you can't. So why do I like that debate? So a kilogram of coffee here costs between $5 to $8. Yes, a cost of kilogram. So it's between 11,000 at most $25,000. Yes. Shillings. That's between $5 to $8. Yes. When you go to the cost of a cup of coffee in Europe, it ranges from $3 to $5, depending on the state where you are or the city. When you look at how many cups are in a kilogram of coffee, the cups in a kilogram of coffee range from 120 to 140 cups, meaning that on average, from 1 kilogram of coffee, which costs between $5 to $8 here, a person in Europe will make $500 on average. So I wish African leaders would concentrate on such mathematics to determine or drive development. Because what does a nation need to develop? A nation needs infrastructure. A nation needs a healthy population. It needs a skilled population and a secure population. Meaning that government should target 4 sectors to drive development. Infrastructure, health, education, the 4th one, and security. So when you look at what amount, I know we have, in the past, when Honorable Nasasra was Minister of Transport, it was a given that the budget for transport was always the biggest. Now I don't know how much. But look at the state of roads in Uganda. just Kampala, metropolitan, that generates 70% of GDP. We have no roads.
It is now education, defense like that.
We have no roads in Kampala metropolitan that generates 70% of GDP. Look at electricity. Power is on and off, destroying our gadgets in homes. So how are factories coping up? How do you promote manufacturing? Each time I'm in some of the economic dialogues, the business community is crying about shortage of electricity. Tanzania, on the other hand, has just closed 5 dams because of excess power. Tanzania has excess power. They don't know what to do with it. In Uganda, one day the president talks of excess power. I've never seen excess power. I have an office in the hub of Untinda in Minister's Village. Half the time we are on batteries because there is no power. So how do you promote productivity in this country? That's got security, the most petty, the most loved subject. And the NRM thinks it's their success, In terms of territorial integrity of this country, yes, nobody has invaded Uganda since NRM came to power. All attempts have been, foiled by the army. But look at internal security and human security. Internal security in the country, I think we talk about 8 to 10 rebellions since NRM came to power. Although some of them defeated, ADF is the longest standing, never defeated. But what is the human security of the people? What are the civil and political rights of the people and freedoms? Because that goes into human security and the cost of living of the citizenry. A higher cost of living of the people would spur the purchasing power. And money must evolve in an economy to grow. So let me go back to Chikubo, where we started from. A strike in Chikubo causes a loss of 2 billion per day to URA in terms of revenue collection. 2 billion. So the number of days traders closed shops, every day URA was losing 2 billion shillings. The fulcrum of money economy in Uganda is Chikubo. All traders up country buy their goods in Chikubo.
And beyond.
And beyond, of course, we have DRC, Kenya,
Sudan.
Everybody buys in Chikubo. So when you are talking of jobs and imports, how many people are engaged in trade? Chikubo every day generates 2 billion. Do the salaried employees generate that? I don't think so.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so let's go to the president's dossier. The president took the summary of that dossier was an explanation to the traders that whether you strike or not, you're going to pay these taxes. That's the bottom line. Whether you strike, whether you close shops, whether you meet me or not, I need tax. There's a paragraph which says actually the government needs money in that dossier. So that is the summary of it. Then the biggest half was to explain why, for example, agricultural products and informal sector cannot be taxed. A country cannot develop by taxing a small portion of the people. Our data shows that 80% of Ugandans are engaged in agricultural productivity. On the other hand, I am fully aware of the fact that agriculture generates about 24.5% of our GDP, meaning that the 80% people generate the least income.
Yes.
So the failure of the political leadership now, the first issue for NRM in 1986 should have been, I know they came with an approach to diversify the economy. But how do you even make the few people? Because you have diversified, but 80% of the population, up to after 38 years in power, are still employed in the agriculture sector.
Subsistence.
So how do you make it productive? How do you make agriculture sector productive? How do you stop the hemorrhage of coffee? And coffee is our second highest foreign exchange earner. So meaning that even when we lose $495 per kilogram of coffee, it is still the second highest foreign exchange. And so how much money are we losing? And what is the function of leadership? Leadership should have sat to make sure they crack the nut to make agriculture productive and earning more income. On the other hand, in developed countries, agriculture earns the most income. Yes, there are subsidies. Farmers go to the US, but if you go to the US, retired senators engaged in agriculture, they are the biggest, even individual funders you can find in the US, more than foundations. So what is it that Africa has failed to do?
Interesting. Leadership. I would like to bring that discussion to you, Doctor. Of course, the president took a protectionist approach in his debate, and you know, this contrasting it with the international economic situation we find ourselves in, having to import a lot of the consumer goods. Do you think that whole discussion was diversionary? As Dr. Bireete has summarized that it was simply to say you must pay the tax. Or is there a valid point? Is there a valid point to protecting local industry?
Yeah, actually must pay the money.
Yeah, Comrade Okot, thank you so much. But for me, I just want to first put this debate in perspective.
Yes, please.
The first thing is the disease of presidentialism. In Uganda, we suffer from a huge disease. People have been thinking that our major disease is anything, AIDS or what. The biggest problem we have in Uganda is the disease of presidentialism. And if you want, you can even call it Musevenism. To be precise. Because, you see, the problems we are dealing with are really small issues of the economy. They are not really the things that really a serious physical or economic planner should be dealing with. The economic planner should be dealing with big things that Sarah is talking about. How do you boost production? How do you make sure that you look after this very important sector, which is agriculture, but producing less? But now we are discussing VAT, IFRIS, use of a machine, really, things of children. And the biggest problem is that Yoweri Museveni has a Minister of Finance. A Minister of Finance, they have even added there an agency called Uganda Revenue Authority. We have ministry, planning sector, and so many. But it is Museveni who can solve the problem of people paying VAT. So I want to lead you to the issues. Some of you may think that the issues which were being discussed at the State House were really big issues. The traders raised four major issues. What was their first issue? Their first issue was on the manufacturers. That manufacturers have destabilized them by becoming retail traders. That Chinese manufacture things in Namamve and everywhere, and they are hawking them in Chikubo and everywhere without the modus operandi that is being created by URA. That was issue number one. Issue number two was on textile products. Clothes, to be simplistic. Clothes. Yeah. That clothes in Uganda now are taxed based on kilograms. So you bring cloth, trousers, and what have you, you put them on kilograms, and each kilogram is given a certain tax. And they were wondering how you can, you have sweaters, and another one has bed sheets, another one has, how do you put them in the same thing and tax them per kilo? And yet they cost different money. The third issue was on the VAT threshold. That the threshold is 150 million. But for them, they were requesting that that should be increased to maybe 500 or so. And the last one, which was just a spark. This one was just a spark. But their major issue by the traders for the whole of the last financial year have been complaining about these three.
Multiple taxes.
These three. So they now come to IFRIS. And IFRIS, they were arguing that one, this IFRIS is making trade expensive. Number two, many of them don't understand how to use it. So they have to hire people to help them to calculate those things, produce those receipts and what have you, and balance their things. So it has added a cost on them because for them they say they cannot use it, and URI has not yet trained them. But the most important thing that was annoying to them, they said that if you don't comply, the penalty was very high, and they gave examples and how many of them have been suffering. Now this problem solver, you needed to wait for the answer he gave. I was listening very carefully. He said that the other things, he does not understand them. So he's going to fast, and he doesn't want the traders to cause temptation on him. Because he was wondering, he was now pretending to wonder, that how can clothes be measured on kilograms? He was pretending, because the president really is the fountain of honor, has a lot of information. He's the consumer of all the information that is in Uganda. If you see anybody looking for information, it is targeting the president. So he pretended that he did not know about it. So he said, for penalty, that one he stopped immediately. He stopped immediately. The rest of the things, he said he was going to have a meeting with the URA people and the technocrats. And I was asking, isn't this what I normally say? That NRM first does something, then thinks later. So they don't think first before they do things. They do, then they think. So he said that one he was going to first find out, to get facts. Because why should the president be meeting people without facts? He has a Minister of Education, he has a planning unit, he has URA, he has intelligence services, he has, I don't know, NRM secretariat. All these characters look for information for him. But he did not know that that happens. So for me, there are three major problems. The first problem is the problem of the president creating a scenario in Uganda that is the alpha and omega of every problem. Because me, I thought this problem would have been resolved by URA. At worst, if URA has made a mistake, Minister of Finance, and they only report to the president that this one we solved it like this. Where is the Prime Minister in all this? Because he brought this group of because if you discover that the problem is now beyond just URA, I mean, and Ministry of Finance and Economic Development, there is trade involved, there is I don't know which one. Now, this is the role of the Prime Minister, because some ministries have come together. The Prime Minister should put them together and direct them what to do. You don't see that. The Prime Minister has never made a statement on these problems. So, at the end of the day, everybody is running to the president. Which doctors? To the president. Those who want salary increment? To the president. Born-again Christians? To the president. Everybody. So, this president, in most cases, he just becomes strategic. That's why you see sometimes he's off topic. They are discussing issues of taxation and poor taxation methods. He's talking about value addition, as if traders have any business with value addition. The traders are complaining to you that they are being harassed by a tax or by people measuring their clothes in kilograms or a penalty. You are telling them economics of value addition. It's like going to a Catholic church and somebody starts Arab prayer for you. He says, Rama, try, Allah, Akbar. You say, what is this? So for me, I think in most cases, it's because he doesn't have an answer. But his solution to problems is by confusing people. So he wants to confuse them. Because the president has been talking about value addition for now more than 30 years. What statistic can he give us that now we started here, we have reached here? You can't just be speaking about it. Number two is the traders. And this is where Ugandans have a problem. I agree with the president that whether they like it or not, they will pay the tax because there is no way. That tax has already been incorporated into our budget. They will pay. So what the president was giving them is just a painkiller. The bone is paining, you put some deep heat so that it confuses. You know what painkiller does is to confuse the nervous system so that the nerve does not send the message to the brain that there is a problem here. So you think you are fine. So the traders, I don't see them sorting out their problems. Some of them, if they have never practiced agriculture and other things, they may end up to be jobless because that tax is not going to get off because it is the easiest to collect. It's the easiest to collect. It has given, and these people are giving how much money they have recovered through that IFRIS, and nobody is going to stop it. Of course, they copied it from China. So, and the traders have wasted a lot of our time. They waste a lot of our time. They have made life very difficult. Then they tell them that, you see, you go, the tax will continue, but the penalty has been stopped, and they go away. So they have just killed the pain. The cause of the pain is still there. Number two, I think, in my view, right now, the way the economy looks like, we have just to prepare to pay more taxes. Because the president, who is feigning ignorance about this thing, he has already approved through cabinet bills which are now before parliament that are going to be implemented. I know those bills are going to pass, 5 of them, and they are talking about VAT, excise duty, income tax, and so on and so on. 5 of them. And they are going to be approved. When they will be approved, it is just going to add insult to already injury that we have. The last one is the political class of Uganda. The political class of Uganda is one that is very dormant. They are only there. They are like these bystander preachers. You know, bystander preachers, they don't have a gospel to give to the people. So when they see you in a vehicle, they change the preaching. That even if you drive that car, Jesus loves you. So one day you are going to leave that car. The moment the car passes and they see another person on the bicycle, they say, oh, even if you are suffering on a bicycle in Kampala, Jesus loves you. He is your protector. He will help you. So our politicians are also like these bystander preachers. They have not offered a serious solution to this problem. What they have done is just to make noise about it the way it has been created by the traders. Today they are with the URA. When they don't understand URA, and now they want to please the traders because they want votes from them, they are with them. Then when the president gives, I was listening to many of them giving their comments after the president's solution. They said the president has done the right thing. And you say, which thing? Yes, they almost done nothing. So the political class is supposed to guide debate. And this guidance of debate, that's why you see, in the office of an MP, they have given them researchers. They have given them a library. For those who don't know, MPs have a fully fledged library with a librarian, better than most of the universities in Uganda. They have given them iPads. They have even now said that in each of their offices, they have television sets so that they can see things, watch CNN, and get to know. Even when they are debating and you are not able to attend, you see the debate on TV. They have that ability. So they are supposed to be informed people so that they can go and guide debate. These issues, in my view, cannot be solved by presidentialism. VAT is a fact of law. It is a tax that was approved by the Parliament of Uganda. How they collect it, these are just modalities. The issue is not VAT. The issue is the law regarding VAT. Because I saw them, they were complaining that that VAT is taxed like 3 times. That when a manufacturer produces, he pays VAT. Then another one who gets the wholesaler pays VAT. Then the retailer at Chikubo pays VAT, and therefore it is the Chikubo. the members of parliament, I mean, the URA is not the one which has made this thing. URA is only implementing. So they are there deceiving the people. Most of the politicians here are deceiving people that URA is the one with the problem. In my view, URA has no problem. URA is only implementing. So at the end of the day, the politicians are not helping, because these things will require to look at the law, to look at the law. Because these are guided by policy. You must look at the law to correct the problem. When they were coming to, they changed that method of collecting tax on clothes and other things. They took an amendment to parliament, and therefore it was approved that that's how you are supposed to do it right now. And for now, you cannot just, that's why you see president is between a hard place and a rock. He cannot just say stop. So he has to give painkiller to these traders, and they go back thinking that they have been helped. They have not been helped at all.
Thank you very much, Doctor. I would like, before we go to the break, to give Major Pollar Awich time to answer or to comment now that we have heard from the three panelists.
Yeah, I think I'm now in a better position to comment. As I had requested, I think all members of the panel.
But don't be reactionary.
No, I'm not reactionary. And maybe you could also know that there's a difference between a reactionary and somebody reacting. A reactionary in a social sense is somebody not progressive. Actually somebody who is anti-left. So
Yes, yeah, and they have found the first son put this country on notice that NRM is reactionary.
which I think is not correct.
So a reactionary for the avoidance of doubt to the viewers is that a reactionary is not somebody responding. It's not synonymous to a grammatical sense of somebody responding. A reactionary, especially in Marxist literature, is somebody who is anti-revolution. Yeah. So a reactionary is different from response. Mere responding is not reactionary. So, but NRM is not reactionary. NRM is very progressive. It's a very revolutionary
NRM is
party.
actually counter-revolutionary
It is
organization.
very revolutionary. So I will not be reactionary, Doctor. Now, first, I want to comment about cushion policies that my Congress colleague here says. Because he says if indeed we are revolutionary or progressive, then a progressive government should give cushions, should protect the ordinary person. Like you say, rightly cited in countries like Sweden, for example. Yes. Did you know that the Swedish national policy is from each according to his ability, to each according to his needs? Whether that is achievable, I don't know, but the state policy of Sweden is let every citizen work as much as he can work, but let him eat as much as he can eat. So the state policy of Sweden is from each according to his ability to each according to his needs, and those are the leftist policy he's talking about. So the question here is, do we give that cushion as the NRM? Yes. That is why the president insisted that on tax law per se, much as every Ugandan ideally pay tax in the sense that you buy water, you pay. You buy soda, you pay. But in business sense of organizations, many Ugandans don't do that, and they don't follow it, and the law is not made specifically for that. If you went to Germany, even if you started a business like before this Google map came, you have a small business of making maps to give to taxis which are moving around Berlin, you'll have to pay tax. You will not do anything without tax. Any small venture you get into is taxation. So this Congress is part of the cushion to say, no, our people are not yet there. Please, let's not tie them so much. So that is part of the cushion that government has been giving for a long time. The other cushion is, we have been having UPE, you have been having USE, that is universal primary education, universal secondary education, and we have been having immunizations in health sector. So these are part of the cushions that government gives to the people.
Yes.
It may not be seen with a naked eye, but these are part of the cushions, just like the cushions done in Sweden and the rest. So I believe that I've tried to shed light on cushion policies for a revolutionary government. Now, the other thing is Congress also hints and says that, I don't know whether it was a slip of a tongue, he says that Museveni should have known it caused poverty. I think these are statements that need to be put in its context because figures don't lie. Consistent figures, even from World Bank that we have had problems, World Bank still indicate there is growth, growing from out of poverty. You know, you have this population in poverty, then they have graduated, they have gone, it has been continuous. Yeah. So it is not true. The other comment I wanted to make was about Dr. Sarah. Dr. Sarah, about mathematics in coffee. Well, I'm glad that Sarah agrees with Museveni for today.
Except he does nothing about it.
I'm so happy about that.
Yeah.
I was wondering why Sarah agrees with Museveni today. I was thinking maybe it is a class interest in that Sarah's parents in Bushenyi could be strong coffee growers, and even Sarah. So it's a class interest. She actually wants coffee promoted because it's personal. Because
for the record, I can't allow this distortion to go. No. Immediately, I have to arrest.
No, I was just questioning how the source of your consciousness.
Yes, my family are cattle keepers, and that's why I want tax. And I am educated by cattle, and that's why I want cattle tax because I know the income. The whole income hidden in cattle.
Very
keeping.
selfless.
Okay, fine. Me, I was just questioning the source of this consciousness. Why is it that today's Sarah is different in agreeing with President Museveni on this very important thing? So I was just questioning the source of consciousness. I was thinking maybe because she had a class interest to that matter. But anyhow, the only point I want to say is that Sarah, indeed, Museveni is right on this, and he will continue to be right. Challenges there too will accompany. For example, the challenge to this that people need to know is that while as a third world country or a coffee producing country, you insist you want to add value to coffee. Do you know that these big coffee capitalists around the world fight you? They say we shall not import your finished coffee anyway. You eat it in Uganda. So they deliberately put a roadblock. Yes. Yes. No. Okay, say it if I'm wrong.
No, actually, that is fantastic. Comrade Awich is telling us that because we fear imperialists, we should hang on to poverty and do yes to them. And Comrade Awich has on this program also said that, don't you see, when the UPC stood firm on this
thank you. You have put your point. But I thought Congress was going to say, I am wrong. The coffee capitalists in the world are not doing that. I thought that is what he was going to tell me. I thought he was going to tell me that because my assertion is, you as Museveni, you as Tanzania, or you as Zambia, you are saying we want to add value to our coffee. Beautiful, like Sarah says. The question is, what stops you? I was just putting one forward, is that the capitalist Nescafe, these capitalist coffee producers, including those who produce chocolate, they tell the coffee producers, you talk, we shall not import your finished coffee. So it is a problem that may not need only Uganda, but a connective effort by all coffee growers. This is a fact, okay? So I just wanted to highlight that, is it that because Sarah was asking with this beautiful mathematics, how comes we have been talking and we are not moving? I am saying partly why we have been talking with the beautiful maths and we are not moving, because you move. And the same thing could apply in petroleum. They'll tell you if you want to sell your finished petroleum, sell it to yourself. For us, we want to buy raw petroleum. We process it and so you get this roadblock there, colleagues. It can apply to coffee, it can apply to petroleum. So it is a struggle. So I want to say that, but I want to say
on coffee, Afande. I think it's important for the viewers to know that Uganda still imports coffee. Nescafe, Star Coffee, and all this is coffee we import. Actually, by statistics, under our trade balance, in 2022, Uganda imported $2.31 million in coffee. So on top of donating jobs, like the president says, which is right, his analysis is right, we still import coffee because we are failing to produce the refined coffee that we should consume in our offices and homes.
Fine, that one agreed. You see, I just wanted to make it clear that this beautiful mathematics, how comes we have talked for long, and I gave the reason. For example, the Venezuela that I told you about. Venezuela, part of their problem is that they want to refine their fuel and add value and export. The Americans say, no, we want it raw at less than maybe 1/50 of the price. Even the 50 billion Venezuela was getting per year, if they were to finish it, it was 150 billion. But the Americans said no. So the same thing is applicable in coffee, colleagues. So it means, therefore, that the war, you may not squarely put it on NRM, but the war is a collective for all developing countries. So I want to put that clear. Now, but on this point, I want to say to Sarah that much as you agree, now that you agree with Museveni's maths, please listen to him more. You will agree on more issues. There are many more issues that you will agree. It seems you don't always listen well. Keep listening, you will agree with him more. So I think I rest that. Now, presidentialism, Doctor talked about presidentialism. Yeah, presidentialism is, I personally share the same sentiments Doctor said. Because presidentialism is really crowding the presidency, is crowding the fountain of honor. Some of these matters had hinted on before should have been operational. And it is not by chance that, like Doctor says, that you go to a Catholic church and you are answered in Islamic. Arabic. It's because the president wants to send a message that, colleagues, my role is this. You are bringing to me this, but this is my role. He consciously knows it. So he will keep rotating to strategic issues. Because the idea of running to the president with everything is not a correct way. We have matters of laws. We have our representatives in parliament. If we had agreed, disagreed,
it's not that he was diverting from the answer. He was just doing his orthodox role as the president.
And also, I don't know where we developed this culture from. It is not that the president calls them. It is that they go there. This presidentialism is not a request or a tendency for micromanagement by the president. It's normally a petition. And maybe it can be subconsciously tagged to lack of confidence on the legislators, because these people know that eventually it will go to law. And if you were to amend such a law, you needed to convince the president, because they are not convincing their legislators. So the presidentialism is not a good thing. President should act on strategic matters, not micromanage, not these other things. But at the same time, we should note that the president does not invite. It is a petition to him. And he actually gets inconvenient. Sometimes he even diverts the petition. Let the prime minister handle, let the vice president. But somehow, in a crisis situation, he's forced in with it. So I agree with the doctor about presidentialism, but I want to say it is a matter forced on the president rather than him. Now, final comment about what has been said. Does NRM first act, then think? Yes. No, NRM thinks, then acts. You see, in real life situation, even in legislations, that is why laws are amended. You can think something thoroughly and think it is well. Once you put it to implementation, you see gaps, what in law we call lacuna. If what we think would work smoothly, we wouldn't have amendments in law. Even a beautiful law, which is even non-political, okay? Yes. A non-political law, you will find that when you put it in place, sooner or later in the implementation process, you find gaps. That is why you see those implementation gaps that NRM seeks to remedy, and our colleagues think to say, we first acted and then thought, no, we think and we act. But real life is not like utopian life, that things move nicely. Therefore, in relation to the taxation and the way the president has handled it, I had earlier on said in this show that problem identified is problem half. And I had laid a fears. I said, no, hold on, since the traders have raised this, the problem will be solved. And therefore, we are not on the wrong path, we're on the right way. Even on matters that the president had stood in that weight. So I just like to assure viewers that these matters will be handled. Because we in NRM believe in a revolutionary, a progressive methods of work. In that problem identified is problem half. Any identification is halving it. So let's see the train it moves. It will move well.
Thank you very much. In a minute, please.
Yes. Two very fundamental points. One, presidentialism. It is Museveni's ways of ruling. It worked for him. And patronage and personal ownership of the Republic of Uganda. And it's something which is irritatingly, terribly expensive. That is why the guy, Comrade Awich, has got to defend him. A clear example, the way UPC would do and the way UPC did. There is a Vice President, John Babiha, who is also Minister of Agriculture, identifies a particular district commissioner at the time, whom he opts to pick as his PS for agriculture. Goes to the head of civil service, who was then Frank Limuzo, in fact. Goes to Milton Obote, of course, the vice president is sitting together. No, there is this great thing he's excited. I want to have this guy. And Obote apparently looks at him and said, yeah, yes, John, that is not my job. You know, that's not my job. You know, you can't tell me that you want me to pull a district commissioner, you know, and turn him into a PS or to go and head an operation in the midst of the agricultural revolution of the 60s. But Biha had to go to Frank Kalimuzo, head of civil service, meaning that is how it worked. The president had a duty, had a job, had his ways. If it influences his opinion on the mere basis that maybe the president has an idea, by and large, of course, he's the chief. But the idea of the president do A, B, C, D, including now in the president's office, like we were saying with a friend of mine yesterday on some other national program, we may end up now having ministry for monitoring of Chikubo, where in State House. State House has got now a duplicate of corruption, a duplicate. Every ministry, every department has got a unit in State House, meaning Mr. Museveni's office. That is how he manages this thing. But now quickly, the point I was raising earlier about coffee. You know, coffee marketing plant in Uganda. I've said it on this program several times. You see that beautiful small building now looks small, but it is grand.
What's inside? At one time they were turned it into a tailoring.
Precisely.
Press.
That was the second largest coffee plant in the world, followed by one which was then only in Brazil.
For
in the
processing.
60s, for coffee processing. You know? What happened? This thing sank, NRA broke it, and then in return they turned it into this thing for tailoring machines for NRA. You know, so where were these people whom Which is talking about? You know, yes, are we now saying that because these guys will stop us from doing what we want to do, we should pack our bags and go home? Where then is our sovereignty? Number two, I have talked again and again and again about our fabrics. Value addition. Uganda produced amongst the best fabrics for most of the top departmental stores in the world, including the ones that have made my tie, and indeed the one that have made my jacket. I put on clothes from Marks and Spencer.
Linked marketing board. And
linked marketing board, adding value actually from the cooperatives to milling to processing.
To be fair, that was before the wake of Chinese.
That was Uganda's
that was
economic base.
But don't you think that wouldn't survive today?
Please don't. Is he talking about China? Is he good talking about Western influence?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I have given you on this platform that there was a cloth in Uganda here known as ginger.
Precisely.
Yes.
It was Nile textile something.
No.
Yes.
But he found that ginger, so people used to call it ginger.
Ginger.
One time I go
Best
to
cotton materials.
yeah, I go to Dar es Salaam and I normally introduce myself that I come from ginger, because that's where I come from. I come from ginger. And he said, no. At Ginger, we know it is a name of a cloth. And where did that cloth go?
I know the cloth.
Yeah, the cloth was all over the place.
Indeed, which
Very good material.
Indeed. So Nightil, ginger,
For bed sheets,
for
for
bed sheets and
clothing,
everything,
uniforms, the
including
best.
specialist fabrics for
T-shirts.
export.
Yeah.
Specialist fabrics for export in Nightil and African Textile Mill in Bale. Two major ones in those places. What happened? This happened in the 60s. What happened? Why can't we do it now? So, so it's a matter of government policy. And for Mr. Museveni, for 38 years, knowing very well that this is what we need to do, and instead he kills them. Right now, Nagongara police station is
But he has some
hosting,
oversized shirts he puts on.
By the way,
Where are they
I
made?
don't know. I don't know.
But how are we going to build? How are we going to build factories?
Where are they from?
I don't know.
My
It was
contentment-
Kanzu looking
my
shirts.
contentment is how are we going to build factories that produce textile locally if we are undercut by extremely cheap clothing from China?
No, we did it. We did it, and of course, that's a matter of policy. You use fiscal policies to check that, and fiscal taxation policy to protect your market. But in this case, what are we protecting? We've got nothing. Bugolobi is closed. Nightil is neither here nor there. ATM in Bale is now a slum. You know, and that's after 38 years. You know, when you read Mr. Museveni's thing, we should be able to, the classroom thing of his in 1970, and as rehearsing it 50 years later, is actually tragically criminal.
Do you remember the Tataroris? Produced for export. Produced everywhere.
We have had a very
And then
interesting,
NRA happened.
very interesting conversation, and I know it will go on. And
NRA looters.
we are going in for a short.
Can't produce.
We are going in for a brief break, but stay here. When we come back, we shall be discussing rationalization that happened in the last 1 week. Thank you very much.
Digital rights are those human rights and legal rights that allow individuals to access, use, create and publish digital media, or to access and use computers, other electronic devices and telecommunication networks. Digital rights include a right to freedom of expression, information and communication through technology, a right to privacy and data protection, a right to credit for personal works, a right to universal and equal digital access, a right to identity, a right to anonymity, a right to be forgotten, and a right for protection of minors, among others. The state's digital rights are frequently violated through various unfair actions, for example, blockage of websites and social networks, theft of credentials, unauthorized use of people's data for personal gain, privacy intrusion, online censorship, arrests and intimidation of online users, internet blockages, and the proliferation of laws and regulations that undermine the potential of technology to drive social, economic, and political development worldwide. It is hence every citizen's responsibility to respect rights of other digital users and to speak out or report to the responsible parties when one's rights are violated.
Thank you very much, our dear viewers, and welcome back to this interesting debate regarding our economy, of course, arising from the riots that happened in town concerning EFRIS and the consequent meeting between traders and the president himself. And we are continuing with the debate. I would like to bring in Dr. Bireete. And Dr. Bireete, my contentment as right before we left was that, yes, indeed we want back to the glory days where we had cotton and everything. But we are living in a reality where China is a dominant player. It's exporting, or we're importing extremely cheap clothing. Isn't it having your cake and eating it when you say that, oh, it is wrong for the president to levy taxes on those consumer imports so that it boosts the local economy? And so that we have Nightil back as a fashion ginger, all over the streets.
You see, the president in his dossier uses an argument that taxation is our protection measure for local productivity and local industries. I'm coming to that. The problem with this is that there's nothing to protect other than cows. I know that we've just concluded the census for animals, and Karamoja has the biggest cows, around 15 million. Because no matter Ankole have this jittery feeling on cows that when we talk about cows, we are targeting Banyankore. No, the largest number of cows is in Karamoja. It's not in Ankole. This census is 1 month old. Ankole comes second with the 12.6 million cows. So it should be the Karamajong who should feel jittery about cows, not Banyankore. We are not number one. So the president in that letter, and he, took a lot of time to explain why cows shouldn't pay tax. I've just checked quickly. In developed countries, there's a sales tax. That sales tax is uniform. Whether it's you are selling, toothpicks, whether you are selling cows, whether you are selling goats, the sales tax applies to everybody in the market and is collected at the point of sale. So when we say, and I know, NRM people like saying the West even pays more tax. What are you talking about? But they provide social protection to the greater detail, including giving people allowances and the unemployed allowances, including functional health, education, roads. So let's look at Uganda. What are we protecting other than cows, pigs, goats? Because what are we producing? When NRM came to power, they found a functional, vibrant sector like Joseph has explained, coffee, with value addition and marketing structures. Cotton, tea, I don't know what was the level of sugarcane production then, but by now we should have added sugarcane, we should have added these new products. The first thing, I saw the slogan in Western Uganda, and as a child, because I was in P3 people, as a child, the slogan was that NRM must cut the footsteps of Obote. It was clear. It came with closure of schools. We had so many secondary schools in my area that Dr. Twerondo had promoted in the campaign to promote education. And I know this was not in isolation. Other districts, but the schools were closed. So at one point when, off campaign, when political leaders were debating, because my father would be among them, and then people were questioning the closure of schools, and many children dropped out of school. Unfortunately, many children got lost in that confusion of closure of schools. So one of the lead NRM leaders then said they must close, they must cut down the footsteps of Obote and his people. So when you come to the destroying the infrastructure, including the coffee processing plant in Bugorori, that was doing value addition, instead of making it better, because now the thing is rotting away. First given to Kananathan, put tailoring machines. Not that tailoring is bad, but really as a country, couldn't we create another place for tailoring machines? So you destroy it like that, you destroy the major cash crop today that is still feeding you in its struggles. I grew up seeing the Tataroris. I know some of you, I don't know whether Tataroris are still on the road.
They are there.
Yeah,
in my place.
But by then, so you would meet, every time we are going to school and coming back from school, you meet these Tataroris produced for export. Coffee marketing board.
Grow more coffee.
Grow more coffee.
Lead
Grow
marketing
more
board.
So you are seeing all this infrastructure and you're like, what is it about? That alone is sensitization. That mental picture in my head as a child can never go away. That's why even now today, when these structures are destroyed, I still make reference to this infrastructure that I was saying. So this was part of automatic patriotism in terms of productivity. Because I knew we earn from coffee, we export coffee. Then the next day you will learn it at school, but you've seen it also. So the farmers, the morale of the farmers. And remember, we had collection centers for all these cash crops. So every parish had a collection center and storage for all the cash crops, coffee, cotton. Then the lorries now would come to transport. All this infrastructure was destroyed by Awich here and his colleagues, that they are destroying the footsteps of Obote. But they were destroying the base of the economy of this nation. I know that NRM talks about value addition. The value addition that is real, other than this tax, I think that tax should have another maybe point of sale tax. Because the value addition is beyond transportation. It's beyond transportation and storage in a shop. This VAT. The real value, this should be a point of sale tax that should be paid by all traders, farmers, and everybody in the market. But this value addition should be like the processing plant that NRM destroyed. Can they put it back? Now they are doing handouts on coffee, playing with groups, this group 10 million. I hear cabinet approved another 30 million for the group they had given 10 million. Handouts to a few individuals that have access to the president. And that builds into the presidentialism. You destroy national infrastructure to create handouts to whoever has access to you, to whoever your cronies are, where your sons and son-in-laws are connected. They are the ones that should be productive and everybody else is closed out. Last, as I conclude, in the spirit of promoting Bubu, I know that the president, puts on these shirts. But as you charge 38% on second-hand clothes, can these shirts be a bit fitting so that some of us who like fitting clothes can be attracted?
Thank you very much. I'd like to bring the...
Comrade Richard is taking note of that because entire school is under attack.
Thank you very much. I would like to bring it to you, Doctor. Yeah. I mean, you said, for example, the Chua is the European approach. And while Dr. Bireete said so many things, she didn't disagree in principle that protection incentivizes local industry.
But what are you protecting?
Yes, your question, what are you protecting? Yes. But in principle, protection
in principle, it's okay. Financial protect, but what are you protecting?
Yeah, so where do we go from here? We have, the president commented about the Dubai model, where we become a reseller, and you talked about, what's wrong with trade at the beginning, what's wrong with Chikubo, and us supplying maybe the region. Yeah. But vis-a-vis...
Number one, we can't follow the Dubai model because we're a very disorganized society, caricatured around the patronage. Dubai, there was a group of people who really thought out a plan. Of course, it's an autocratic system in Dubai. They don't vote. It's a monarch, but very organized monarch who think about the future. And recently, you saw when one of the Emirates was almost, he said, "I cannot die in power." So he handed over to the son. And the son is doing good things. They think about tomorrow. Here we think about today.
He actually calls himself the CEO.
Yes, let me give you a perspective. I normally look at NRM plans and models, economic models. I am not a very serious economist. I didn't study economics at the university, but I am a historical economics. I studied economics up to senior 6, but I've been reading on my own. Production is the only solution to these problems, to boost meaningful production. And production anywhere in the world, if you still follow even the Adam Smith principles, there must be incentives, the forces of demand and supply. You are not going to tell people to grow cotton, because I remember when we were young, we were growing cotton to a level that we would not get where to sell it. So you would put in sacks and make homemade mattresses for you to sleep on. So people just abandoned it. One of the things that, if you look at when K. Borap introduced cotton here, K. Borap was a colonialist. The first thing they did was to develop the transport system. And that's why you see, because northern Uganda was seen as the leading producer of cotton. That's why there was Lira millers in Lira and these other places. The railway had to go to the north. The railway went to the west to collect copper and cobalt. In Busoga, it was to collect cotton and cotton mainly. Then in Buganda, it was to collect coffee. And so on. So wherever there was production, a railway would go there.
Production,
and the railway transport has been seen to be the cheapest because it is only expensive to put in place, but after it has been installed, it is cheap to maintain, it's cheap to manage, more than road and these other Pajero economy. Now, this economy has surprised us. The first thing that was killed, and we don't know for what purpose, was the railway.
The footsteps.
The railway. It was deliberately killed. Busoga had 2 lines.
That's correct, yes.
Busoga had 2 lines, the western line and the eastern line. The western went to, the eastern went to Mbulamuti, down like that to Magogo's place, like that. The eastern went via Sembatia and like that, but they met at Tororo. So they collected all the coffee that was produced there and brought it to Jinja. The coffee, cotton, where there were Mulko, there was Naitil.
Yeah, Jinja was a hub for factories.
Yes, then there was some in Tororo and so on. There is now a joke going on.
What?
The railway, the first thing they did, there was a company called Uguma. I don't know, Uganda, something in Uguma. That company was the first fabricating company that he developed here to fabricate. They took all the railway lines and sleepers. And that company, when I was trying to find out, it is attached to a high-ranking officer in the NRA, not in the government, in the NRA. Now he's somewhere producing tiles. So they stole all the railway lines and the sleepers. The western lane is not there now. It's not. The eastern is not there. In fact, recently, the railway now is effectively from Nakorongo. Is that place called what? In Natete? Nalukorongo. From Nalukorongo to Namamve. After Namamve, there is nothing. So recently there was fun on social media. The train strayed off the rail line, and people said it was looking for its rail. You can imagine a train looking for its rail. And here is a president who is promoting production. There is no way you can promote production when the transport system is shambolic. If it is there, it's very expensive. Road transport is the most expensive transport system. To carry a container of goods from here to Mbarara is very expensive. So much of the traders' expense is on transport. So production cannot go on with expensive transport. In Uganda, in the region, when you look at our electricity, is one of the most expensive per unit.
Unavailable.
And it's not there. So you have, when you are putting in place a factory, you have to provide a double or triple sources of electricity. You must have umeme, you must have a generator. Sometimes the generators also fail. You must have the batteries solar. This is solar system. So that also makes production very expensive. Above all, when you finish that struggle, URA is waiting for you. And you are competing with the people who are on exemption, tax-free, and so on. There are traders here who are on exemption, and that's one of the issues the traders raised, that there are people who go with the exemption and they don't know the procedure of exempting X and continuing with the other one. So production also becomes very difficult. Number 4, capital. Where to get capital to do business. The banks have very higher interest. They deceived us that they had put in place Uganda Development Bank to help those people who want to produce, and agriculturists in this case. But this Uganda Development Bank, getting money from there, I don't know whether it is even possible. To an extent that you are dealing with the people who are going to come to Uganda with a briefcase trader. He's given land for free. He's given a concession to borrow money, and the government is the one who is standing in for them, the Pinetis of this world. And the parliament is approving all those things. So you are going to compete with those people. But the most important thing is that they don't put there anything. After they have gotten that money, they put the money in the briefcase, they disappear, and they put now a probe in parliament, a probe in this, to find out how did this person steal money, another expenditure. I can give you an example. There is this man who wants to take Luzira prison, 260-something acres of land to construct a hotel. And everybody, I saw a letter by the president instructing the then Minister of Lands and Bwana Kahindo Tafire, the Minister for Internal Affairs, to make sure that that land is secured and given to that man. That man already has a scandal. He was given land in Tororo, and he has not developed anything. In fact, he has a semblance of this kingdom Kampala, which was given Shimoni and the related land. You can imagine the whole land in Shimoni and what Shimoni was doing for this country. They just constructed there one car block of a house where now MPs are the ones again renting. In fact, they are using it to steal money from the treasury. So, in an economy which is run like this, the president is wrong. He cannot do value addition because there will be no production. Because the president is an economist, he's slightly better than me. He studied economics at the university. And I am not one of the people who say he did not study, because I have read his works there. He was a brilliant person, and really at the university, they respect him. But his economics is, we call it voodoo economics. He talks about economics that does not exist. Because in my view, if the president was a real economist, he would know what are the benchmarks of economics. If you want production, there are certain things you put in place first. You don't tell people. Economics is not like faith, that when you tell people, they get converted. Yes.
Doctor, how about this view that he indeed knows economics, but maybe part of his strategy to rule for long was to impoverish people?
And that's why I'm calling it now voodoo economics. Voodoo economics, where you tell people things which are not real. This voodoo economics, he would know that, for example, to boost production, which creates value addition, you need to put in place infrastructure. You need to put in place incentives. He normally claims, and the major here will, I know now that one is going, that for him he has put conducing environment. Environment alone cannot bring a good, because if it was environment, then Zanzibar, Zanzibar would be the most developed place in Africa, because Zanzibar has a very good environment. It is at the sea. It has everything. I have never had, ever since 1964 when they had the revolution, they have never had any problem. When you go there, ni salamu tu. People are just saying, salama, salama, shikamo, marahaba. It's a very peaceful place, if you want to see a peaceful place. But you go to Zanzibar, there is nothing. So you need real economics to do certain things, to put in place infrastructure, to put in place incentives, to put in place a system, which in my view, himself, he goes there and quarrels. He has put a government which is a government of the corrupt. That one he explains himself. That's why he put state house, I don't know what, anti-corruption what. Because people are here that they cannot even be helped. Somebody wants to invest. I want to tell you, Bwana Okot, just to open up a company, a trading company in Uganda here, is a tug of war. This one I have experimented. I have been trying to open up a company. I completed yesterday. I started in December last year. Me, with the knowledge I have. You go to register, there is a problem. You go to PPDA, there is a problem. You go to URA, now to get a number to pay tax. You feel it's like a PhD exam. So I feel for these people. That's why people have leased to open a company. You need 10 million. You need how much for somebody to open for you? So for me, I said I will not give anybody my money. Let me do it myself. Now with my level of education, the thing is just very difficult. From December to
the
today.
online system.
All the systems.
Okay.
All the systems. Because you first have to book a name with the URSB. Then you, after booking, that one only also disturbs you. If there is any similarity at all, they will reject like 10 times.
Yes.
Then when you finish to book a name, you pay. You now fill forms. I mean to preserve a name. Reserve a name. Then you start payment systems. Then you start registration.
Then you need a box number.
You need a box number. To get a box number is a tug of war. You go to the post office. Today they have not worked. The other day they are not there. So
and I don't know why they
from there you go to the local government.
Because our post office system is dead.
You can't use it. It's just something.
Then
Then you go to local government. From local government you go to PPDA. From PPDA you go to URA. Now URA is the hardest. They will reject your things like 10 times. There are so many things. No, I've not yet reached there. I've not yet reached there. So
even yours is still work in progress.
Yes. So for a country which wants to do value addition, there is no way you can start dealing with the people as individuals. Companies are the things, because the company becomes an entity. Why don't we simplify the things? And I go and register a one-stop center where I can register for all the things and in a simple way so that I get the company.
Thank you very much. I would like to move on to Major Pollar, just to respond before we move on to rationalization. I know you picked up many issues along the way.
Of course, I picked many issues which...
For advice to his team.
Sorry?
For advice to his team.
For advice what?
To your team.
To take back.
No. Of course. You see, as I keep saying, in our revolutionary methods of work, if there are things really to take back, I wouldn't hesitate to take it back. We are an open-minded, honest organization called NRM. There's anything to take back, surely, why wouldn't I?
Yeah.
That one I will do.
Bring back the infrastructure
That one I'll do.
agricultural production.
Now, I first want to comment about the congressman's assertion about Babia. I know Babia's family, his children are my friends. He says he was trying to illustrate a point that under UPC, like Obote, would not interfere. That is in reference to presidentialism, that when Babia wanted to bring a PS, contacted Obote said, no, go to head of public service. This is one example, which is good. But I can assure you, if I was to give examples of people who went to Museveni with things that does not need his requirement and he has referred, maybe your Babia example would just be one of them. Including even in institutions like Central Executive Committee, when you try to bring issues, for example, which is not particularly in his domain, he'll tell you no. So I just want to restrain myself from examples that on a day-to-day basis, including putting it in writing, Museveni has told many people that you're bringing this matter which is not in the domain of the president. So I just like to assure my friend that the Babia example is just one. But for us in the methods of work, things that Museveni has done in that dimension are countless.
So in good faith, the comrade who raised Dr. Ojambo, so you do suggest to Dr. Ojambo that on this one it was an error for Mr. Museveni not to refer the matter of these traders to the Minister of Finance or other relevant authorities, but it was clearly a matter in his own domain, number one. And number two, as I understand it, Mr. Museveni is planning to have thousands of people in traders in Kololo airstrip, and I wonder, under what remit is that? Is that a public rally or a campaign thing? Who's going to pay for the cost of that? And is that where decision making is going to be? Is it like another Ojambo meeting of traders, which is going to take place in Kololo, or what is it?
Okay, you have two questions there. One on the question of referring it to the Minister of Finance. You see, as I said, these matters which reach the president, he doesn't call for them. It is a petition to him. So he has a discretion to reject a petition and say, I'm not listening to you, or he has a discretion to say, okay, let me listen to you. If he so chose to listen, like he chooses to listen, like in this case he did, rather than deflect to Minister of Finance, normally he will call the minister to be in there so that the matters are resolved at once. Instead of deflecting it to the minister, he will call the minister and said, you be in attendance. And where he wants to ask question, he has often asked it, said, what do you say, the minister? By the way, these methods, these open methods of work has even worked in the army. For example, if the president comes in the past many 40 years ago when we still had a small NRA, even matters of, like if it came to logistics, if he comes to address your battalion and the soldiers raise a question of lack of food, he will say, admin officer or logistics officer, come and explain. So this method of work has not only worked in the smaller unit like in the army that he prefers to give it to the right mandated person, but even in government, in the wider scheme of government. So instead of deflecting to the Minister of Finance, he always calls such a minister to listen in, and he will either answer there or it is worked out. On the issue of the Kololo, Kololo is still part of the accepting of the petition, because as I say, the president has the mandate to choose to listen to a petition and refer it to Minister of Finance, like you're saying, or depending on the gravity and the appeal made to him, he could choose to listen. Now, if he chose to listen, it is now discretional to what scope of people, how big should the group be? Do you choose to meet leaders only? Do you choose to meet a wider group? So the Kololo meeting is a part of the work in progress of accepting the petition that was raised to him. So don't be worried about the size. To him, he thinks the bigger the size, the bigger you hear everybody, so that nobody is left out. Now, the other comment I wanted to make is about cotton. And one silent fact, because the Congress person points a finger, an image out there that the UPC government had done so much in cotton.
Of course we did.
And therefore, it is rosy, and then we have failed. But also, Doctor makes a disclaimer. Doctor says that actually at one time, cotton could not be bought, and people were putting it in the local, creating local mattress. But I know for a fact that much as there are those challenges that the doctor is saying, there was a time, if you read our history, C and A, there's a government company, a global government company, yes, which is called C and A. I don't know what C is, but A.
It's like Marks and Spencer, yes.
But it owns, it manufactures linen. To the extent that in Uganda then, it could sponsor the growing of cotton, the weeding of cotton, the harvesting of cotton, and they would buy and make suits. And they are very fine suits. When I was in UN, I used to buy from C&A because they had good stores in Switzerland, in Geneva. So those were the days. But you hinted also that global dynamics, the powerhouses that come, had effect on this. Colleagues, we should know that we are working against the global north. So these are matters either by use of technology, which comes at a particular time, or the economic that grows to some extent that impedes on us. It acts on us. Right, we have the sovereignty. That's why some of us sometimes even think that if you act as Uganda alone, you may not break through. That's why we have a lot of investment in a collective effort like Pan-Africanism, or even a G77 that we have had in a Munyonyo, or even the non-aligned movement, because we think that collectively we can do it. It is not a Ugandan issue. So cotton, that is it, including CNA. Dr. Sarah also insists so much that there was this destroying of Obote's footmarks.
Yeah.
I can't say because I didn't hear it myself, but I hope we're not being quoted wrongly. We need the authenticity. If there was deliberate, all we did was that NRM came with 10-point program. And it could not be conceivable that there is a department or a policy meant to simply waste time, destroy the hottest things. The 10-point program in itself was operational. It was enforceable. It was good to operate it. So I hope Sarah is not trying to bring in
for the benefit of funding.
I wonder which department was detailed.
For the benefit of the viewership of funding, maybe you could explain how we lost the cooperative movement and things like the coffee marketing board and its infrastructure. What policy was that?
And the public schools.
Yeah, what policy of government was that? Coffee marketing board.
Now, the loss to cooperatives and coffee is a mixture of policies or issues. First of all, this came amidst an IMF World Bank restructuring program. You will realize that the cooperatives is actually what Congress would say a leftist tendency. In other words, it is a social organization. IMF World Bank, with their new neoliberalism, comes to say, crack social, make it individual. That is what capitalism is all about. It is good for us all, each for himself. So it therefore disinterested government, not only in the governance, but even in the funding. So there was a deliberate policy tendencies to discourage that. Possibly one of our biggest mistakes that we keep, and Dr. Suroma keeps saying this, is that we swallowed IMF World Bank to a very big extent, because Suroma is still crying for Uganda Commercial Bank, which was bought by Stanbic up to now. So part of the quarrel which brought this was that. And personally, I actually have a leftist sentiment. We were not convinced about that, but that is the root cause. Because as capital came, people forgot that as IMF World Bank was advocating for destruction of social amenities, which included remove cost in education, which included remove cost in health. In other words, leave people on independent things. People didn't know that it would even come with a psychological impact.
Yeah.
Can you imagine after that, we had 3 religions, Catholic, Anglican, and Muslim. People forgot that when you create economic base which is individual, good for us all, everybody becomes individual. I stay in Nansana, in Akrite. From Akrite, Nansana, to the main road, do you know that there are 7 churches and 2 shops? So there are more churches than shops. So this is part of the product of that capitalism. You could even know, because now everybody is starting its own church. It started with some preachers coming from America, and they thought they would have the monopoly. Nigerians jumped on. Now you can start your own church. Because you have capitalized in a sense that you brought in the element of each for himself, God for us all. And this is part of the structure that was destroying cooperatives, that is perceived as a social element which is leftist. One more comment about that, what that we swallowed. Even morality. Morals is what we consider in a group as wrong or right. That is what moral is. So, in a capitalist society, as was World Bank advocated, even what I think is right is not what Congress thinks is right. It may be right to me, wrong. For example, it was not possible before this IMF to find women on the street of Speak Hotel selling. The morality was there. But IMF World Bank conditionality.
And the people buy.
Yes. When it came up, all of a sudden it came up. And it happens in all countries, including Russia.
Forces of demand and supply.
Including Russia. So this.
So why are you now back?
We are talking of a moral. You cannot superimpose a moral concept on a purely private economic system.
So why are you now then legislating for people's sexual behaviors?
I will come to that later. So me, what I'm saying is I'm trying to answer your question on the genesis of which led to death of cooperatives.
Yes, yes.
That is what I was answering. So I just wanted to make that comment. Now, so if there was any, it is not true in my opinion that there was a deliberate section of intelligence or department to destroy what is thing. No, we had a 10-point program set to work on it. So there was nothing to my knowledge. And then maybe a comment on Sarah's fitting clothes. And he makes comment about Museveni's.
Yeah, we need the attraction to boo-boo.
You see, we are already talking of capitalism. The choice of what is right for me and good for you. So fashion, Sarah, or designed to put on, is not a matter of
it's a freedom of choice.
It's a freedom of choice.
So
if chooses to put on a big one, that shouldn't
from
work.
wherever.
For you can put on one which shows cabina and the hips and everything.
Except Sarah's concern is that because it comes from the public coffers, and Sarah's actually not quite sure whether it's actually worth 1 million Uganda shillings, which is the taxpayers' money.
I have understood our concern.
Okay.
Our concern is the size. So me, I'm saying a size is a matter's choice.
As we conclude on this.
This matter of tax, oh my God, the matter of tax exemption keeps coming up. You know, we had a movement caucus in Colorado, and Attorney General came clear and said, the tax exemption is a matter of the law. It is now not discriminative. It is on the basis whoever is investing this amount at this time enjoys. So I don't know why there's still constant debate of selective application of tax exemption or tax origins. This is a flat now under the law. So I wanted to make that clear. Of course, the idea that maybe Museveni has made people poor so that they can...
Yes.
That is a talk on the side and intended to win opinion. But it is easier and better to rule a successful, healthy community. It is when they actually love you and feel you. And Museveni, since his childhood, again I said, since entire days, is bent on liberating the poor, is bent on good livelihood, and he has demonstrated it. Maybe I will leave others, but it's the opening of the thing. We needed maybe somebody from the registrar. The latest I heard was that we had tried as a government to make a one-stop center. So if there are still claims or if there are still cries, it may be genuine that there are still challenges. I would have wished maybe one day invite somebody from that. But I thought we had done everything to make it a one-stop center. But if there's still cries, it is good to listen to it.
Thank you very much for those insights. I think we'll quickly move on to the rationalization in the last few minutes. I'll start.
Don't you mind me just marrying the two before I come in?
I'll ask you the question, then you can start from there. So, of course, just for our viewers, we have had a serious month of rationalization talks, including some approved by Parliament, 17th of the month. Particularly those that align with Ministry of Trade. We saw warehouse receipt systems, free zones, export promotion board. We saw discussions around Uganda Wildlife Education Center, among others, and the Meteorological Center. There's the direction towards rationalizing and avoiding of duplication. Honorable Semuju said, I support the government because they're doing the right thing in response to that. Do you also take that line? That it is time to remove some of the costs. The president says 1 trillion to be saved from this rationalization process.
1 trillion to be saved, and how many trillion lost in corruption? 10 trillion.
Yeah, but I mean, a positive and a negative. I'm not good with integers, but I believe...
Are you scaringly trying to expose your issues on mathematics? Okay, 1 trillion on rationalization, viewers, versus 10 trillion on corruption. That will lose to reduce corruption. That is context. But before I fully respond, Comrade Awich said something to do with cotton, which I think was a point that had been raised by my brother Robert, and I don't want it to get lost in translation. The cotton question would have been during Amin's time, when we Ugandans were opposed to Idi Amin, and my party predominantly led in the in the anti-Amin campaign. So we take responsibility. That we undermined Amin's economy, we undermined Amin's government, and we undermined our own nation state, meaning the Republic of Uganda, in the way that it was being under
that confession.
Take him out of power.
It
was a campaign.
He's sometimes actually quite irritated. Hussein is sometimes very irritating, by the way, in the course of him trying to cleanse his father. Fortunately for me, his son is trying to cleanse him, and some other sons are trying to help Museveni to try and kill the names of their father. That's a slightly different thing. So no, so we did that as a matter of policy. In fact, one of the things that brought down our coffee production and the death of our industry was the sanctions by the U.S., which most people supported. And in fact, the U.S. deliberately pushed the dollars into Kenya so that smuggling of coffee from Uganda would undermine Amin's economy. Amin's basically restricting him access to forex.
And maybe to add, Joseph, that economic campaigns are part of the means of non-violence in struggles.
Precisely. So that said, then the cotton thing was there, just like sugar and salt and everything else. You know, but during Obote too, you know, this thing was restored, and part of what Sarah is saying. So there was no any time in the Truth government was saying that now you guys not only resume but double your productivity. And in fact, what I said, particularly the people of Uganda, whom he knew. This is another thing that the late Minister Mugisha says, that what he simply said that I know I'm not going to get majority support from Uganda, you know, but you know you are the hub of our economic base. Produce more coffee, produce more matoke, go into production as we would call it, and we shall buy, and we shall make sure that we also buy, and we buy at a competitive price to make sure that we uplift your communities.
One of the things remembered about Obote 2, of course, is Ojambo taking over the coffee marketing board. Do you have any comments about that? Because it's normally put as, you know, a stain. The president recently said that put it in the light as one of the stains of the economic policies at the time.
Museveni and his brother would be very uncomfortable when you begin to raise or you to joke on coffee versus families and men getting involved in these things. No, actually, that's a very important point. Oyitu Joke was given the mandate partly because of smuggling which had taken place during Amin's time. Okay. And so it was basically and sort of mini army operations to check the smuggling, and that's basically how he was put. And what it puts actually, it's a written public document, very, very clearly put, and actually there is the evidence that once Oyitu Joke became that, you know, the process got turned around, and in fact our coffee exports, proceeds, and fortunes fundamentally turned around in part, actually. That's why by 1983, 84, Uganda's standard of living rose for the first time, meaning it was a complete turnaround on Uganda's economy within 3 years, notwithstanding the fact that Oyitu Joke had died the previous year. It had got nothing to do with patronage, it had got nothing to do with family, it had nothing to do with Trinity, as some said, father, son, or whatever. In any case, Oyitu Joke was not related to Milton Obote in any way. No, Oyitu Joke is Uganda's finest soldier, and on record. So New African, my former magazine called him Africa's Lion of War. That Lion of War was such a fantastic soldier, but also such a fantastic nationalist, that getting rid of him tried to create a system that sometimes one of the reasons why I questioned Mr. Museveni, Oyitu Joke died in Luwero, and if Museveni had gone to court and not gone to Luwero, perhaps would have known who and what killed Oyitu Joke in Luwero. Lest we forget.
All right, just to get back to you are proceeding with the...
Yes, so as it were, we shouldn't be discussing this because there was no need for this rationalization thing, but Comrade Awich has already told us that they went the IMF way because they were being instructed. So Mr. Museveni, who boasts in his economics literature in Dar es Salaam, all of a sudden, come 1986, 87, becomes a Nyampala on behalf of a neoliberal agenda. And when Anglo-America says, do this on behalf of American taxpayers and sink Ugandan citizens, he kneels and said, yes, sir. That's basically what Museveni did. Yeah. So basically, break our health system, break our educational systems, break our agricultural systems, sell off Uganda Commercial Bank, and create quangos, as it would be called, at the expense of Ugandan citizens, and then 38 years later, you can come and make it as a topic of conversation. The rationalization agenda is unfortunately not a subject we should be spending most of the time on it, but it is happening. My opinion is that some of these are things that would be a matter of policy of political parties saying that, well, in the UPC government, if we came in, we would review these things. In any case, as I said at the beginning, we would be making sure that we deal with the size of government. For instance, UPC government would reduce the size of cabinet by 1/3 in the very minimum. We would reduce the size of parliament by a half in the very minimum. We would review local government structures and administrations, and we review government spending, including spending in parliament. We would review spending in president's office, including president's clothes. In fact, I would zero, as the future president of Uganda, I would zero, and I mean zero, payments or allowances for a president. To imagine that Olaa, you don't get any exemptions on the clothes that you put, that the orphans that UPC used to give free education from lowest unit to the top, including Museveni, who was another, so an orphan gets a free education at university. These days, those children don't get anything. And a president with a huge amount of privilege, you still pay for him 1 million Ugandan shillings per day for a shirt that is not fitting.
No,
and that
maybe
concerns.
because it has too much material.
So tell me if that is not criminal. And in any case, I wonder, is this really a cloth or a policy for a regime that claims to be socialist or revolutionary? It's not the revolution that I know. So it is something which is long overdue. My concern, though, is the cost of the reforms itself is usually very, very heavy. But by and large, we need to reduce the size of government and reduce duplications because that enables efficiency. But are we going to get people who will be able to do that? I do not know. But whatever happens in this country, nothing is going to change fundamentally in this country unless Mr. Museveni goes. Because the problem is, as I said, I think Dr. Ojambo said, is at the top. It is Museveni and his system and the men and the women whom he's created, patronage regime. So by and large, there may be savings, but those savings are going to go back to the pockets of the very same looters, unfortunately.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ochieno. Dr. Bireete, do you agree with Honorable Semoju that the government is doing it right, at least with the rationalization?
Well, let me first pick it from where Joe has left. The bottleneck is at the top of the bottle, always. The problem is always at the top. Because when you look at the rationalization of agencies, in principle, it's a good thing.
Yes.
Because we are a consumptive country to the extent that even whatever taxpayers pay for development of the country, it's just to grow the stomachs of politicians and political leaders. So the political leaders are big parasites in the economy of Uganda. You look at the budget for President Museveni, 2.8 billion per day. Per day.
Did you know that?
And if you add supplementaries, it goes above 3 billion per day. A single day. A single day, you have and I've said it, a single day you have a president who consumes 6 seed schools. You cannot develop. Whether you want it or not, you cannot develop. And we have to be in a situation we are in today, burdened by debt, burdened by heavy taxes, and the poorest of service delivery that we can get as citizens. You got parliament, 2.6 billion per day. 5 seed schools. Whether they sit or not, they get this money. Because this is an average. So whether they are in research, whether they are in what, this is the money we spend on 2 institutions, the parliament and the president. The presidency, given that now his children are all adults, ideally it's the president, his wife, and the domestic servants. And the wife has another budget as a minister. That one we have not talked of.
On top of the budget.
So ideally we have one person, because the wife has another taxpayer's budget that takes care of her. The son has another budget. The son-in-law has another budget. So they have. So how much money are we spending on a family per day? So to make, you know, as much as, so I think the rationalization that we are doing, the original report on rationalization had recommended that we get rid of 128 agencies. This was a report by a few people, led by the president's son. Yes,
Okay.
because maybe he's an institution. I don't know what government agency he reads or what vote, but he's an institution on his own. So he had recommended that you need to get rid of 128 agencies that are duplicating services of ministries. So I don't know how we ended up with a piecemeal, even of that recommendation. So the question now you need to ask is, does NRM or can NRM just pick one thing and implement it effectively? I don't think so. Because of the multiple interests that develop along the way. So when General Sare produced this report of 128 agencies, people started lobbying. Because we are in a lobbyist government, lobby, patronage, then this one he comes and says, but you remember, you know my mother was related to your mother. I am the one whose job you want to take away. Say, no, get that off the list. Then you know, because that's how you work. It is a government of relatives, friends, in-laws, and whatever.
And a few hobbies.
Yes, and hobbies, and then what? So you go and say, but you know we are connected. So it is just a racket of Gambanogu. How can you take out my job now? How will I survive? That's how we even end up with 138 useless presidential advisors. Because the president and the advisors themselves have said they never advise each other. Or they don't meet. They don't, there is no role they play. He just puts them on a taxpayer's burden to get fuel and they afford a few things. So you have this structure of government that is structured in a way, one, that it cannot be productive because the decision making has now remained at the top of the bottom. And that's why traders and everybody has to meet the bottleneck. Everybody has to go to the bottleneck. So, because the other factions, even if you make a decision, it can be reversed in a stroke of a pen or even a verbal directive.
As you conclude, because we still have two points.
Yes. So for me, to rationalize a few, like 30 agencies, and you think you're saving money, at first they thought they would save 1 trillion, but Parliament has refused some of them. So maybe they would save...
Most of them.
Yeah. So maybe they would save half or nothing. Because even then, to make, you not add injury to the wound, as we are, the Parliament is debating rationalization, then you appoint 300 assistant RDCs.
Oh, yes.
2 billion shillings per month.
So what message? You know, at times you could think that maybe to rule Uganda, you need to act like a mad person, or you think government works in a way that appears in a mad way to us, the citizens. So you can't stop corruption, you can't reduce the size of government, so you're struggling to save at this point only to lose an ocean. What are we doing?
Thank you very much, Doctor. Doctor, briefly before we get...
yeah, very briefly. I just want to use an analogy of a man who was trying to clean a downstream when the one dirtying it was upstream. So this rationalization is like cleaning a downstream when the dirt is upstream. You know, for those who understand geography and other related things, that is not possible. Because as you remove the dirt here, the other man at upstream is adding their dirt. So I find, I agree with Sarah, the problem is on the top. The top itself is very expensive. In fact, the biggest burden to this country is the office of the president. That is the biggest burden. Yesterday, my son was telling me that they almost slept on the road from school here at Naria to reach home because they had closed the road the president was supposed to pass.
The guy was supposed to pass.
He was supposed to pass there, and it took 3 hours for him to later pass.
And they cross a paid-up road.
Yes. So you can imagine.
Where you paid
this is
pass.
my son is in P4. He already knows the problems
The burden.
the president can cause to a country. The other day I was watching Ruto burying this General Gola. And I saw a man seated on a plastic chair. He was seated on a plastic chair because at the grave they put there also chairs. He was seated on a plastic chair. These ones which were brought by, they are called what?
He did not carry his own. He did not carry his own.
In this country, there is no way our president can sit on a plastic chair. They have to carry the thing, even if he's going to rest near the toilet, they will carry and put it there.
If he has witchcraft.
So that he sits there. Now that is an expense. It's an expense. It's a special expense. That's why you go to 2.8 billion shillings per day. So for me, rationalization, number one, was a good thing. In principle, any sensible human being. You were reading some of those organizations. And I was asking, what does that one do?
Yeah.
What does that one really do?
Yeah.
Because you see, in Uganda, we put systems. I can give you the university where I work. There is estates department, which is supposed to deal with the maintenance. But every time I see people who are coming to maintain are hired contractors. So I ask myself, what does the estate department do? Even in replacing bulbs, you see somebody, bulb suppliers company limited. Now you say, what does these ones in the estate department do? It's a system. This is what we call now structured corruption. Where now you formalize corruption to assist many people. And if you found out who is the owner of that company, the road will lead you to State House. So in my view, I think it was a good idea to rationalize. But I want to tell you that somewhere, the president changed his mind. Because if the president wanted that thing to be rationalized, that law would have been passed omnibus. Because you remember, at first it was brought omnibus, all the things were there. Once I started hearing that bring one by one, I knew there were some which needed to be isolated. And the few that are isolated will go. For example, I was really mocking one of my MPs that if you are strong, you are an MP, you rationalize UNRWA, and we see. And you know who heads UNRWA? You know who heads UNRWA?
I don't.
Kajina. And trace Kajina properly. Trace her genealogies. You will see where you stop. I also told somebody that let me see if you can rationalize this board which collects. You know, in work salon there are two.
The road fund.
The road fund.
There's a road fund.
The road fund. Now, I am not an ethnicity person. I normally tell people I speak so many languages. I married from Western Uganda, so I'm not I'm not an ethnicity person. But I want you to find out who are the people in this road fund. And
but what does road fund do?
The simplest, you just go to Entebbe Highway and look at the people who collect the money there. You will know that this is a very complicated thing. You can't touch it. So in my view, I think the issue is not rationalization. The idea was good, but again, rationalize so that you save what? Because that money
for who
is like picking water from a small can and putting it in a basket. Water, you are pouring it in a basket. Our government is already porous. That even if you save the money and took it to the treasury, it is still going to have a hemorrhage. And that's what Joe was joking, and we need to take this serious. That you want to save 1 trillion, and every year you are losing 10 trillion. Are you working? In physics, is that work done? Nothing.
I would like to, I appreciate your submission. I'd like to just bring in Major Pollar as we conclude.
Well,
the last one.
The last one is that I am surprised with my colleagues in a turnaround of not loving rationalization.
We love it.
No, not wanting.
The principle. The principle, but you can't
One of
effect
the
it.
statement you said, doctor, was actually saying it's not a good thing. Now, this is what I'm saying. Why am I surprised? Because at a time when we also, like, there was multiplicity of these bodies, the cry by everybody was rationalize. So I thought by now all of us would be clapping our hands.
But we want it.
We want it.
Yeah, but it should be whole. It should be holistic.
It was telling me now, like one of my biggest fan singer, Lucky Dube. Lucky Dube is one of his songs called "I've Got Jah." Jah Rastafari. Yes. Lucky Dube says, if you keep telling people about something you don't know, something you are ignorant about, they will hate you. Should you tell them about yourself, they'll say you are boasting. They will hate you. Okay, leave telling about it. Tell them about somebody else. They'll say you are boasting. So if you don't want me to tell me about something I don't know, about myself, about others. So like Dubu is saying, human mind is like that. The only person you can talk about is Jah. Okay? Because if the cry was we want rationalization and government embarks on it, and you see a lot of retraction again, then what are we talking about? So this is now what Lokedubi says, whatever you do, whether you talk about what you don't know, they will hate you. Whether you talk about yourself, they say you are boasting. You talk about somebody else, they say you are gossiping. So it is only Jah. So in other words, rationalization was a cry, and we think we should do it. And it is not to say when you save what, if you did not save 1 trillion, you would not save corruption. By implication, therefore, if you remove these personnel who are body coppers, individuals involved in corruption, by removing them, you have also removed corruption, in other words. Okay? Because the corruption is not done by machine.
But it's
but it looks like we are saying, it looks like we are saying you are removing, you are saving 1 trillion, but you are still keeping corruption.
And we are appointing you idle people.
Colleagues, what I'm saying is, rationalization has been a cry. Let us try it out. And nothing is perfect. But we shouldn't just be like Dubi saying that we keep changing goalposts.
No.
So at any one time you do something and we do it.
For the first time, I think, Major, you were not attentive. You must have not been attentive, and you are misrepresenting us.
I'm attentive.
All of us, 3 of us, said that rationalization
is good.
We have only disagreed with the method.
You said it and put more disclaimer than actually what you purport to support.
Thank you.
So we should support
Comrade Awich is diverting attention.
We should support it wholeheartedly.
He's a student of his boss.
So, Okot, ask Major. Are you happy with how it is being done?
I am happy in the conceptual framework of government. Actually, what I wanted to say is we should only be mindful, because there are sentiments that the legislators who are supposed to do the work are being bribed.
Yes.
And this one, you are not even putting it on government.
Who introduced bribery in this country of MPs?
Bribery was not introduced by Museveni.
I want to tell you, Major, since you have decided to blackmail us,
we should be guarding.
Since you have decided to blackmail us,
I'm not blackmailing you.
There is, if Museveni wanted this rationalization to go through, he would have called all the MPs and bribed them, and they would have passed it omnibus.
Because that's what he has done. Because that's what he does.
Doctor is saying if Museveni wanted, he would have called MPs.
Yes.
And it is on the record. I left you people here. Can I finish this, sir? I want to answer, Doctor. It is true, I left you people here. I said we are going on SEC in State House. The SEC was calling MPs to say support rationalization. That is what it did.
Did he give them money?
Did he give
them MPs and said supporting.
Our time is.
Tell him
did he bribe?
Our time
he
is
did not bribe.
He did not bribe.
He did not.
Tell him to bribe.
No comment. No comment.
No, there's no bribing.
No comment.
You see, NRM caucus, we have a what we call a whip. Ideally, a whip of a party should mean a whip. This is not to beat whipping. But a whip in a political system is you sell an idea, you whip your people into thinking that or into agreeing. So why would we bribe when we have a whip?
Because that's your culture. Because that's their culture. NRM, they always bribe MPs.
So if it is not bribe,
yes, they have voted against
you. Today, our dear viewers, it seems NRM cannot do anything right.
No, they have done. That is what they do.
But thank you very much for following Citizens Chat Show. That brings us to the close of our debate today. Of course, on the issue of taxation, but also rationalization.
And bribery.
Pray that you share this as wide as you can and keep up the conversation as we work together to build Uganda, of course. Thank you very much.